Hi everyone, I'm going to go ahead and go over the assignment from Transforming Linear Functions because I know several people had some questions and difficulties with the assignment. So let's go over these. The first couple problems were, the first three problems are up here on the screen for you. We're talking about transforming linear functions. So we're given a graph. Before we can actually do the transformation, we have to figure out what the equation is of the graph that they gave us to start with. So if we look at this first one, we know that we have a y-intercept of -3, and then we also know what the slope is. The slope is, if we go up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1. So our slope here is 2, and our y-intercept is -3. So that means the equation that we're starting with, our f of x equation, is 2x minus 3. And now we need to do a horizontal translation left 3 units. So whenever we do a horizontal translation, we need to substitute in for x, and we're doing x minus whatever that value is that we're doing. So we're doing 3 to the left, which means we have to do -3 there. Okay? This is where it sometimes throws people off because this negative times a negative becomes positive. And so this is in fact what we're doing. Okay? So again, when you're doing a horizontal or a horizontal translation to the left or to the right, you're substituting x with x minus whatever direction you're going. In this case, since we're going to the left, we put in -3. Negative times a negative becomes positive. From there, we're just going to distribute and then combine our like terms. So our final answer here is 2x plus 3. And that's what goes here. G of x is equal to 2x plus 3. With the second one, again, the first thing we have to do is figure out what the original function is. We know that our y-intercept is 1, and we know that our slope is -1/2 because we're going down 1 and 2 to the right. So the equation of our line that we're starting with is -1/2 x plus 1. Okay, so that's our starting point. Now, because we're doing a vertical compression, we are multiplying the entire equation by that scale factor of 1/5. So I'm doing 1/5 times the entire function, -1/2 x plus 1. From there, then I'm just going to distribute, so I end up with -1/10 x plus 1/5, and that is my final answer for g of x for that second problem. Okay, and that would go up here. Now this third problem, again, I'm just going to write it over here because I have more room. The third problem here, we have to figure out what our starting function is. My b value, or my y-intercept, is -3, and my slope is 1. I'm going up 1 and over 1 each time. So the original equation is x minus 3. When you reflect across the x-axis, when you reflect across the y-axis, you just change the sign of the x term. So since in the original equation it's positive x, it now becomes -x, and that's all that we need to do for that one. Okay, so start with the original equation and then go ahead and perform the transformation that they're asking you to do. In problem number 4, we first have to figure out what the equation is. So in problems 1 through 3, we were given the graph and we had to figure it out. In this case, we're given the table. The one thing we do know here is what the y-intercept is. We know that our b value is 7 because this point is 0, 7, which means we're going 0 in the x direction and 7 in the y direction, which puts us on the y-axis at 7. However, we do need to figure out the slope. Remember, slope is change in y over change in x. So I have 7 minus -3 over our change in x, which is 0 minus -5. Remember that a negative times a negative is a positive. I end up with 10 over 5, which reduces to 2. So my original function is f of x is equal to 2x plus 7. That's my starting point. And now I need to do this horizontal stretch by a factor of 2.3. So with a horizontal stretch, all you're doing is taking that x value and replacing it with the reciprocal of that scale factor. Okay, the reciprocal just means you flip it. So instead of 2.3 over 1, you end up with 1 over 2.3. And that's it. That's all you really have to do for that. That is the problem. You can leave it like that. You don't have to go through and multiply this out if you don't want to. That's all that they're asking you to do. Okay? When you're doing a horizontal stretch or compression, it doesn't matter which one you're doing, you're taking the reciprocal of this value and plugging that in for x. Okay? So I replaced x with 1 over 2.3x. And that's your entire answer right there. In number 5, we're doing a vertical compression. So we have our starting equation, f of x is equal to 1.7x minus 3. When we do a vertical compression or a vertical stretch, we're multiplying that entire equation by that factor. So I'm going to multiply the entire equation by 0.7. So my new function, I'm just going to distribute 0.7 times 1.7 and then 0.7 times 3. I end up with 1.19x minus 2.1. That's my whole equation right there, and that's all I have to do for that one. Okay, number 6 and 7. This is combining two different transformations at once. So we'll start with number 6 here. In number 6, we're starting with f of x is equal to x. Now, remember with a vertical translation, we just tack that number on the end. So because I'm going down 2 units, I end up with f of x equals x minus 2. If it had gone up 2 units, it would have been a plus 2 on the end. It's down 2 units, so it's minus 2. Then it says, followed by a horizontal compression by a factor of 2/5. So now I have to remember when we do a horizontal compression or stretch, we're replacing x with the reciprocal of that scale factor. Okay, the reciprocal of 2 over 5 is 5 over 2 times x minus 2, and that is our final answer for that one. There's nothing fancy that you have to do. You're just replacing x with that value, the reciprocal of the scale factor. Okay, so that would be your answer for number 6. Number 7, we're starting out again with the same problem. F of x is equal to x. And then we're doing a horizontal stretch by a factor of 3.2, which means I'm just replacing x with the reciprocal of that scale factor. So instead of f of x equals x, now I have g of x is equal to 1 over 3.2 times x. And now I have to do the horizontal translation. So now I have to replace x with x minus, because I'm going right, this number is positive, so it's positive 3 there, so I end up with 1 over 3.2 times x minus 3. And that is my final answer. And that's all I have to do. You don't need to do anything else with it. Okay? In the last problem, we're talking about the red cab taxi service. It says write a price function for a taxi ride. So the original taxi ride is, if we have f of x, right, it costs us $1, and then 75 cents for each additional fifth of a mile. But now what we're doing is we're multiplying that by 1.5. So instead of maybe a taxi cab ride costing $10, it now costs $15 because we multiply that by 1.5. So our function g of x is taking this entire function that we started with and multiplying it by 1.5. Okay? And that transformation, if you describe it, is all it is a vertical stretch. And that's it. Okay? There's nothing overly complicated about it if you understand what's going on. If you're not sure, that's where it gets a little tricky. So a little helpful hint for you. Okay? When you're translating, that means you're shifting up or down, left or right. So when you're translating, if you're going in the vertical direction, you tack it on the end. Tack it on the end. Basically, you're just doing it to the whole function, okay? When you are going horizontal, you're replacing x. Okay? So for example, if you have f of x is equal to 3x minus 5, and you're going to the right 2 units, it now becomes 3 times x minus 2 minus 5. Distribute that, and you end up with 3x plus 1. Okay? You're just replacing x with whatever shift you're doing. If you're going to the right, it's a minus. If you're going to the left, there should be a plus there. It's kind of backwards of what you would expect. If you are adding a, or excuse me, if you are doing a stretch or compression, so a stretch or a compression with the vertical, you multiply the entire equation, multiply entire equation by the factor. And horizontal, you just multiply the x. I'm just trying to write fast here. Multiply x by the reciprocal of the factor. So if you're compressing or if you're stretching by a factor of, I don't know, 9/7, then you would multiply by 7 over 9. Okay? That's about it. That's the homework. A couple of quick little helpful hints. Hopefully that'll help. Go back and do those problems again, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.